Conservatives, liberals, left-wingers, let's talk about what's to come. So Donald Trump has officially won the election. Take note of the lack of conspiracy theories coming from the left. Take note of how quickly CNN, MSNBC, independent left-wing channels just straight up like, okay, Trump won, right? He won the popular, he won the electoral college. It is what it is, right? They may be saddened and depressed about the results, but they're strong enough to accept the results, right? They're not sitting here. Now, don't get me wrong. And so many bad faith actors, you're going to want to point out some wackos talking about some wacky stuff, right? But don't pretend like it's the same as when Trump lost, right? It wasn't just some wackos. We had mainstream folks that were pushing all kinds of rhetoric and all kinds of cope, right? You've seen all the big mainstream media channels. They're like, Trump won, straight up, right? They put it out there. Not a lot of games and shenanigans and all this kind of stuff. You also notice that you don't see a lot of focus on election stolen narratives. They were talking about it before when it was uncertain and looked like Kamala might win. But now that Trump has won, notice how you're going to see a lack of interest and focus on that, right? So was it ever real, right? If it's real, then there's going to be a lot of focus on whatever shenanigans and whatever that the Democrats did, and it didn't work, but they did try, right? But if it was all a game, there's no need for that anymore. So not that we're not going to see any kind of court cases or whatever, but it's not going to be a major thing. Not going to be a lot of people talking about it. It's just going to be, hey, we want, right? Notice another thing. You're going to see a lot of immaturity coming from right-wingers who are going to be going on left-wing channels and talking about liberal tears and a bunch of smiley faces and like children, right? You're going to see a lot of really childish behavior today from a lot of right-wingers who previously would like us to believe that America was about to be destroyed. We're going to become a socialist country. You know, so many bad things are going to happen. And somehow we managed to dodge that bullet. And then your immediate response is a bunch of smiley faces and haha. So was it ever really as dismal as you guys were claiming? Right? Because I'll tell you right now, if Kamala had won, I would not be haha, he, LOL, smiley face. I mean, first of all, because I'm a grown-ass man, that's childish. And two, because I would be first in a like disbelief how close we came, right? Did we really escape this, right? I would be sort of humbled and maybe, I mean, of course there'd be some level of joy and relief, but I certainly would not be running around with a bunch of smiley faces. I would only be doing that if it was never serious, if it was all just a game, it was all just a joke, that I knew the whole time that the Democrats weren't going to ruin the country and this and if I didn't believe in any of that stuff, then yes, I would prioritize like smiley faces and all that kind of stuff. Okay, now let's move forward. Going forward, let me start with the good news for you guys on the left. There isn't much, but there is some good news. As always, as I've talked about on this channel, in the media, people are greedy. Trump was a very bad guy, did a lot of bad things, but it was never good enough. They always had to exaggerate. Like, for example, recently I did a video, the woman on CNN talking about Trump says that he wants to shoot Liz Cheney or something like that. Like, are we to believe that you're someone that would have access to be on CNN speaking and you're so not knowledgeable about what's happening that did she really think that Trump said he wanted to shoot Liz Cheney? Or was she just straight up lying, right? So because of that reality, that means that there's some stuff that was talked about that was certainly hyperbolic, right? Now, I can't know what's going to happen, obviously, but these are my thoughts. As a nonpartisan person looking from the outside in, not part of the bubbles, this is what I'm gathering from what I'm seeing. I think the worst of Trump in terms of prediction of what he's going to do is not going to play out. So the idea of him being a straight up dictator and he's going to put everybody in camps and just the most like extreme stuff, I think that's over the top. The damage that he's most definitely going to do is definitely going to be very serious and is going to affect us for decades in a very severe way. It already has, right, with what happened with abortion. But it's not going to be at the extreme level that's been described by some folks in left-wing media. However, it will certainly open the door for that and then some to become a reality in the future. Donald Trump has opened Pandora's box and shown some much more clever people, much more strategic people, how much you can manipulate the American people. I mean, look at all he's done, right? The crimes, the criminal cases, all the stuff he says. Look at the end of what he said. And he not only won, he won the popular vote. And imagine what would happen if someone in the future who's not insane and who is strategic, right? I'm not saying that Trump is not strategic at all. I mean, he did win the election, right? The idea of, I'm not even getting into all the crazy stuff he's done. You guys have seen it already, right? I'm talking to the left is well aware of all the crazy stuff that Trump has done recently. That, I mean, it's not just the left feeling that it was crazy. His own campaign was like scrambling, like, oh, distance ourselves and blah, blah. So clearly they saw it as risky stuff, right? Imagine someone who doesn't do stuff like that. Someone who doesn't say the crazy stuff that Trump does, right? But they have the charisma to animate a lot of people, tap into people's pains, right? This kind of person, you think Trump pulled in a lot of Latino and, you know, people that are traditional Democratic Party voters? You think Trump did a good job with that? Imagine what somebody slick could do. Look at how strongly he won, right? being as divisive as he is, right? Imagine somebody clever could double or triple what Trump did. So you're talking about strong majorities in the Senate, the House, and get into the White House and do a lot of damage in the dark. So clever that even the media can't keep up, right? So a lot of stuff they do, by the time the media even picks up on it, it's too late. So the really scary stuff is really that they've been describing about Trump. Trump is not the one to do it. It's going to be somebody in the future, unless Americans wake up, right, and realize that we are the ones in the driver's seat and stop just voting and going home and realizing the most important part of our election is what happens after you vote, right? Until we realize the power that we have, right, and put our hands on the steering wheel and start steering the ship as we can, that's the path that we're headed onto. Right? What's the real stuff that Trump is going to do? What's the real damage, the realistic damage? The Supreme Court has already been devastated. Well, Trump is going to very likely put it on life support. And these are lifetime, nominations. So as long as you or I are alive, we're going to be dealing with a potential of a. I mean, where do you see what's been happening already? Imagine that getting much worse. What else is going to get repealed, right? And with all this momentum on their side, how are you going to really be able to pull stuff back, right? So positive thing is not going to be as extreme as people describe, but still, there's a lot of potential damage. So let me just give a summary. So what's going to be the real damage? So it's other than Supreme Court, giving police even more protections, which can shield very bad police officers from doing some very bad things to people, and not just people that look like me either. More of what we saw already. Like Trump brought us these crazy, insane Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, more people like that in power, right? Who can stay in power for a very long time and cause a lot of damage around the country on a local level, on a national level. In terms of going after his enemies, I don't know what to say about that. I would not be surprised if he does some stuff. I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't. I mean, why he wouldn't would be, even though he may have all this power now, he's going to want to have something to hide behind to make it look like, well, actually, what I'm doing is actually legit. So I just don't see him just straight up like, I'm going to go and arrest Nancy Pelosi. Not that I care about Nancy Pelosi getting arrested. She probably deserves to be arrested, but I don't know. I feel like if he's going to go after people, there's going to be limits on how far he's going to go, because again, he's going to want something to hide behind. It can't be just out of thin air. Because if you're talking about like putting people in prison, I mean, let the right wingers tell it. They would say that that's what the left has done, which is not true, but they would say that people have had long prison sentences and the charges were just completely manufactured. That's not really what happened. And I really don't think Trump would necessarily do that, but notice the way that I'm sort of having difficulty saying this, because my confidence level that he wouldn't is not very high, obviously. But I would say this much. If there's any there, you can expect him to go after people and politicize the DOJ. You can expect the right wingers to not care, right? They had all this talk about lawfare and all this kind of stuff. Trump's probably going to do lawfare and they're not going to care one bit. And if you push them on this, they're going to say, well, your side did it too. But it's going to be stuff like, let's, for example, there's a Democrat that did break some law about trading when they're not supposed to trade, or didn't report something, whatever. I could see him going after them and then them suffering the consequences. But the reality is, if they did something wrong, they should be gone after. The only problem there is if he doesn't do it for Republicans as well, which he wouldn't. So that'll be the issue. It would be exactly what they were saying the Democrats are doing. He would actually do that. So a partisan attack on any sort of crimes that he can find that Democrats have done, going after them, tough sentences, that's going to give him even more power, because people are going to be afraid of him, right? I find it so hard to really be too definitive on a lot of stuff, because Trump is just such a wild card. He just says all kinds of stuff, and then, what he says versus reality. So like the mass deportations, he's certainly going to go through the motions like he's going to do it, but will he actually go through with it? And if he does, will the Democrats be able to stop him through the legal process, which would mean that the Supreme Court doesn't back up what Trump is doing? Can they find an argument that is so solid that even a super right-wing Supreme Court can't stop it? So I don't know where that's going to go. But if I were an illegal immigrant, I would be very uncomfortable right now. I'll say that. And conservatives, this is also something that you can expect, and I want you to be prepared for. The economy is actually doing really good right now. We've done a really great recovery. Unfortunately, there's one part of the economy that is not doing very well. The Republicans have used that to sort of hide all the progress that we've had. And that part is incomes. Inflations have far superseded income, right? So in spite of the fact of job employment being very low, a lot of jobs have been created, and not just talking about the people going back to work after COVID either. In spite of the stock market, all the metrics, right? Unfortunately, the way that the average person experiences the economy is based on cost of living, and cost of living is very high still. But here's the reality. Trump's not going to really do much about that. Best case scenario, like the last time, he doesn't do much damage, so the economy continues to go in a positive direction. But the Republicans will pretend as if the things that they were ignoring before and dismissing, they're going to pretend as if this is Trump doing good work, right? So you're going to listen for them talking about how unemployment is low right now, right? And they don't want to talk about, it's not really this and that's not really whatever, right? Watch how they're not going to change how they're measuring unemployment. They're not going to change any of that stuff. They're going to use the same methods and the same data to say how unemployment is really low. They're going to use the same metrics that we're saying about inflation being low. Inflation's low under Trump, even though it's low now, right? So the point is, you're not going to look at graphs and see unemployment, Trump takes office and he does stuff, and then unemployment starts dipping even lower. Trump gets in office, he does stuff, and inflation starts, you can look on the graph and zoom out and you see the dip. You can see on the graph where, now he tried to pretend like there was a dip that he did. That's just before he got shot. He was about to lie, show a graph, and say this is when Biden came in office, but that's actually not what it was. So they're gonna play games like that. But bottom line is, I want you to observe the things that the liberals are saying that are good about the economy, right? Does Trump use different systems, different metrics, different measuring mechanisms to show those values going forward? Or does he use the same values and just claim that, oh, how good things are, this is good. So the same stuff that the Democrats have been claiming, right, which will still exist, like Trump getting elected, that stuff doesn't go away, right? Not initially anyway. So pay attention to that kind of stuff. Now, if he does some crazy tariffs and stuff, that's definitely, going to hurt us. So we're going to see some pain coming from that. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be sort of a whitewashing of that and like, oh, just got to wait. It's a process. It doesn't happen right away. And, there's not going to be any acceptance of any of Donald Trump's failures. I mean, that's nothing new. But one thing I want to end on is to the folks on the left. As bad as things are going to get under Trump, I want you to stop deluding yourself. I don't know why, after all this time, we don't understand the Trump effect and how it works. Stop deluding yourself and thinking that things are going to get so bad that you're going to have this big win in 2028, right? In order for the damage that Trump causes to have a major effect on the election, unfortunately, you have to realize, look what just happened, right? The most important thing is perception, not reality, right? So if Trump does horribly and hurts our country, but the perception is that he did a great job and things were great and, under Biden, no one had jobs and look how long, if people think that, and you see, based on this election results, like the propaganda machine is very effective, right? So at the end of 4 years, and you also see that you could do all the videos you want talking about how, correcting the record. Trump is out there claiming that unemployment is low, but look at this graph. It was low under Biden as well. He only dropped it down 0.1% or actually went up 0.3%. You've seen that stuff doesn't work, right? So don't think that the next election is going to be an easy thing and you're just going to win because Trump is going to do so horribly. Now, in your bubble, you're going to see how bad he does. You're going to see all the damage, right? But he won the popular vote, right? So all those people that fell for it, right, that have been brainwashed and manipulated into believing this alternate reality, why do you think that's going to change in the next 4 years, right? Look at everything that's happened. Just stop and think for a second. All the criminal cases, all the stuff he's done, all the antics in the last couple of weeks, right? Look at all the money that was raised by Kamala's team, and he not only won, he won the popular vote, he won strong, right? Why on earth do you think that simply another 4 years of chaos, again, chaos to who, right? If you're in a bubble that's telling you that there isn't any chaos, right? Or anything that bad that's happening is that Democrats are blocking stuff or, they're doing shenanigans behind the scenes. I mean, the same way they came up with all kinds of stories and people fall for it. What's the limit of this ability to sort of manipulate people into believing false realities, right? I haven't seen it. I don't know what else to say, man. I mean, I guess to end on a positive note, we can fix all of this. We could have fixed it and it's not very difficult at all, right? If enough people came out and voted for Kamala Harris, she would have won and would have stopped Trump from winning. Not stop Trump, but stop him from winning. That's the next thing. People think, oh, if Kamala won, that'll be the end of Trump. No. I don't know how long it takes. What's it going to take? We need like 30 years of this before people are like, wait a minute, this thing just is like, this thing that Trump has created it's I don't know how to describe it, man, but it's not going anywhere anytime soon, right? And it has nothing to do, him winning, that doesn't help us get away from that. But again, even if he lost, he wasn't going anywhere. But the positive thing is, if you guys would recognize that you have the most power, that no matter what Trump does or whatever, whoever gets the most votes wins the election, right? But the problem that you guys have been missing is that voting is only the beginning, right? The analogy I always give is that there's a black bear approaching you and democracy is the rifle, right? You have a rifle, it says democracy on the side. You have it aimed, this is what's been happening. You guys have the gun aimed at the ground, right? And every 4 years, you put a bullet in the gun, right? And then you proceed to stand there and let the bear just maul you, right? Putting a bullet in a gun doesn't do anything. Having the gun doesn't do anything. You have to aim and you have to fire, right? How do you aim and you fire with democracy? After you vote, you have to hold who you voted for accountable. First of all, you vote with demands. You let people know this is what we want, right? You got to do these things or we're not voting for you. And if they make a claim that they say they're going to do it, you got to let them know, listen, all right, we're going to vote for you, but listen, we ain't playing any games, right? You better deliver or we're going to demolish you next election. And we don't want to hear about the next side, whatever. We're going to demolish you. Right? You got to build a large enough coalition that they have to listen to you, because I don't care how much donor money, it doesn't matter. Whoever gets the most votes wins, right? Like if we had 120 million Americans that were standing together and putting demands, Kamala, you better do X, Y, and Z, otherwise we're going to demolish you. They go out to the polls, they win the popular vote, they win electoral college, right? And then as soon as she wins, they're on her ass from day one. Get to it, get it done. And they don't take any excuses, this and that, whatever. They make sure that she is fighting with every ounce of her being. Right? You try this, it fails, try something else. You try that, it fails, try something else. They got to see that she's giving it her all. No excuses. And if they don't see that, demolish her, right? Primary whoever's not delivering, right? You have to fight for what you want in this country. That's how democracy works. It is self-service. It's not automatic, right? You have to put your hand on the steering wheel, right? And you got to steer the ship, right? We have the ability to steer the ship, but we all sit down and we put on cruise control, and then we complain about the cruise control is shutting off every time somebody brakes. We don't have adaptive cruise control, or it's following too close, or it's going too fast, or whatever it is. But you don't have to use cruise control. You don't have to just vote and run away, right? You can vote and then put your hand on the steering wheel and say, listen, you're going to do what you promised to do. Otherwise, we're going to demolish you in the next election, right? You have to make these politicians afraid of you. The Democrats have not been afraid of their base in a very long time, right? And for those of you Jill Stein voters, you have even less power than you had before, because the Democrats now see that you guys were irrelevant. The amount of votes that Jill Stein got did not make a difference whatsoever. If they had voted for Democrats, it wouldn't have changed anything at all, right? And I don't make that an absolute statement. I know there's certain areas where it would have or whatever, but in terms of Trump winning, if they had voted for Democrats, Trump would have still won. So them voting for Jill Stein did nothing, right? In terms of, again, what I'm pointing out is that the Democrats did not need the Jill Stein voters. Your votes were not needed. The election was not close enough for you guys to matter. So in the Democrats' minds, they made the right decision to ignore you guys. They made a gamble that they didn't need your votes to win, and they were correct, right? You didn't have enough numbers to really hurt the Democrats. Now, if the election was actually as close as they were predicting, that could have been the case, but that wasn't the case, right? Regardless of all the details, the bottom line is the Jill Stein vote did not matter in this election, right? So next time around, you guys want to talk to your demands about Gaza, whatever, they were confident they didn't need you, right? This time around, next time around, they're probably going to be even more confident. Sorry to tell you. And also, anybody concerned about Palestine? If you were concerned about Palestine, things aren't looking good for you. If you were genuinely concerned, if you were just fake outraging, that's one thing. But if you're genuinely concerned, things are not looking good, right? And if you didn't do anything to prevent what's about to happen, you gotta live with that. This is Baby Channel, debate in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.